What is going on, YouTube? Are you interested in making some cannabis infused edibles but worried about creating a big mess or creating a nasty odor that's going to piss off your neighbors or roommates? Well, I'm going to show you my absolute favorite method for infusing coconut oil with cannabis. It is by far the easiest method. It is the least amount of mess that you can possibly make doing this. I think it comes out really strong, and the beauty of it is you're not going to create any nasty odor during the entire process. So if you're trying to be stealth, this is going to be the best method for you. Today we're going to be using 3.5 grams of bud. Alternatively, you can use 10 to 14 grams of trim. We're going to be using an 8-ounce mason jar. Alternatively, if you're using trim, you might want to go with a 16-ounce. Our good friend cheesecloth is going to be making an appearance at this party. And last but not least, we got our liquid coconut oil. Now, over the past few years, coconut oil has become the de facto cooking oil for making cannabis-infused edibles. There's a few reasons why, mainly because of the high amount of saturated fat that's contained inside this oil. For example, the virgin coconut oil here is about 90% saturated fat. Compare that to something like olive oil, which is only around 15% saturated fat. Now, the saturated fat means that it can absorb more of the THC into the oil. Now, I know some of you are thinking, hey, saturated fat, I've heard it's bad. There are actually two different types of saturated fat. The one in coconut oil is a medium chain triglyceride, so it's actually easier for your body to break down and doesn't contribute to high cholesterol. Today we're going to be using a liquid coconut oil. The thing I like about this, besides the fact that it is 100% saturated fat, is the fact that it has 4 times the amount of medium chain triglycerides that are contained in virgin coconut oil. This means that our bodies are going to be able to break this down quicker, and the effects of the cannabis and the edibles are going to hit us sooner. This liquid coconut oil is great because it does not have any coconut aroma or taste. I like the taste of coconut, but I don't necessarily want it in everything that I'm going to prepare with this, so using a liquid coconut oil gives us a lot more versatility. I was able to find this product at my local supermarket, but I'll also put an Amazon link in the description. Next, we're going to take our 3.5 grams of cannabis and we're going to chop it up. You can use a grinder for this, but I personally think it makes it a little bit too fine and you can get particulates in your oil, so I prefer to use a knife for this process. Next, we're going to take our cheesecloth and fold it over a couple times. And then we're going to take our chopped up bud and we're going to make basically a little tea bag out of our cheesecloth. Take a piece of kitchen twine, or in this case I'm using a metal wire, and simply twist shut the top of the bag. Next, we're going to want to remove the excess part of the cheesecloth. The more cheesecloth we have on there, the more oil is going to absorb into it, so we don't want that. So all the excess material we want to get off of there. Here we go. Our medicated tea bag is ready to go. So we're going to take our mason jar and we're going to plop this little bad boy inside. And then we're going to fill the mason jar with 2/3 of a cup of the liquid coconut oil. Now, we want to end up yielding about a half of a cup to use in a recipe, but you have to keep in mind that there is going to be some oil lost to absorption into the material, so always add a little bit more than you want your final volume to be. Next, you're going to want to secure the lid to the mason jar as tight as you possibly can, and then we're going to take it over to the stove, and we're going to place it in a pot of boiling water for 2 hours. Now, during this time, the THCA is going to be extracted from the cannabis and put into the oil, and it's going to be decarboxylated and transmitted from THCA to THC, which is the actual psychoactive compound. The decarboxylation is extremely important when making cannabis edibles. If you don't do this step, if you don't introduce heat for this amount of time, the edibles aren't going to work and you're not going to feel as much of an effect from it, if any at all. So our reaction's been going on now for about 2 hours at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. And it's time to pull it out. So be sure that you use a glove or some sort of protection because this is going to be extremely hot. The metal on the actual mason jar will be very hot, so be extremely careful when pulling it out. The reaction is now complete, and the best part is that there's been absolutely no smell so far. Like if I were to do this in a crock pot or something, it would be basically reeking up my entire place. But with this process, no smell, and the next part is super easy as well. So we're going to take off the lid and we are going to strain out the last little bit of coconut oil that is stuck into the tea bag. Make sure you do this part because there you will get quite a bit of extra oil out, and the oil that you're going to squeeze out is very high in THC. Speaking of THC content, dosing is very important when it comes to cannabis edibles. Anybody that's been experimenting with this stuff long enough has at least one story of a time that they just took too much, they ate too much. Well, it's not going to hurt you. It can definitely be an unpleasant experience if you get way too high off edibles. So what I recommend is a little bit of simple math to keep your dosages in check. So we figured that the average bud is anywhere from like 15 to 25%. So let's figure that this bud is at 20% THC. So the total amount is 3.5 grams or 3,500 milligrams. And we're not going to get all 20% of that absorbed. I would say usually you get about half or so. A good jumping off point would be to figure that 10% of the total weight of bud that you put in is going to actually make it into the oil. So if we put in 3,500 milligrams of bud, that means that we're getting about 350 milligrams of THC in the oil. So this is going to yield about half a cup, and most recipes are going to use about half a cup of oil. So if you were to divide them into 10 servings, that means that you're getting about 35 milligrams per dose. This is definitely a strong dose. You're going to feel it, but it's not going to be too much to where it's really going to put you over the edge and it's going to be a bad experience. I always recommend with edibles, go slow, eat half, eat a whole one, but, don't just eat a whole bunch of them because you don't feel anything right away. I used this particular batch with a box of store-bought brownie mix, and the results were absolutely fantastic. The dosing was perfect. I ate one and definitely felt it, but I wasn't at the point where I couldn't sleep or anything because I was so high. But yeah, be sure to comment. Let me know what you end up using this oil for. Thank you once again for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I'm going to be doing a lot of edible videos in the future, so I'm going to kind of use this as a base for, infusing oil and using it in different recipes. So if you like this sort of stuff, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you once again for watching. Take care. Peace.